So my guest today is Brad Sondock with the Retail Properties Group, founder and CEO of Retail Properties Group. Brad, glad to have you here today.
Thank you.
Brad is one of the most colorful people that I know. Always has a lot of energy and successful self-made real estate owner, developer, investor, and always someone who has a lot of energy and shares a lot with people in the business. So Brad, honored to have you here today.
Appreciate it. Looking forward to some fun.
We actually set this up so there's a piano in the background back here because your family business when you were growing up, your family business wasn't real estate necessarily. Your family business was the piano business, right? You were in the music business as a family.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah.
So you guys owned Brook Mays.
Brook Mays Piano Company was a franchise that my grandfather, I guess, bought and brought to Houston, and his two sons, Fillmore, my dad, and my dad's brother Melvin got into it. So it was the father, two sons in the business, and that was their full-time business. They grew it into 5 locations.
So I looked at the history of Brook Mays. Brook Mays was one of the only music companies that survived the Great Depression. It's been around for a long, long time. They sold pianos, was the primary, with Yamaha pianos, was that it?
I don't know quite all the brands. Yamaha was the primary. And they opened up a full band and guitar department later on, which catapulted it even in further success.
So tell me about that. So you're with your dad. You know, growing up, do you have memories of going to the stores? How many stores did you guys have in Houston?
They had 5 stores in Houston. I remember going there a few times. My dad died when I was young. I was 14, so I don't have a ton of memories. But being in retail, now that I'm a shopping center developer with some understanding of retail, I can just look back and see what he must have gone through time and giving of himself to be in retail. He wasn't around a whole lot from what I remember.
You're the middle child of 3. So you have a younger brother and older sister?
Older brother and a younger sister.
When your dad passes, you had some growing up to do, I think, at that point in time. That's a pivotal time in your life, right? You're going through 14, your mid-teens, you lose your dad, and you know, as I look forward, you end up going to TCU, you end up going to University of Houston. But when is there a sense there that you're on your own, that you have a lot of responsibility? Because my dad died what I felt like was pretty young. My dad died when I was 30, so I didn't get a lot of my dad in my life, but you know, you got half that. Was there a maturity that you felt like you kind of coming of age because of that?
Again, at that age, you just kind of depend on the environment. And, you know, a lot of my memories, I guess, are limited. But I think, you know, I was a kind of an awkward kid as it was. I wasn't an athlete. So I probably had my own things going through even prior to that. And then once, you know, with my dad passing, of course, my mother, a few years later, was dating and had interests of her own. So I think I led a pretty independent life as a teenager. Probably didn't really come into myself until my late teens, when my entrepreneurial spirit kind of accidentally kicked into place.
Yeah, I'm going to get to that because you had a massive influence from your uncle as you grew up. So there's a little bit of time in there that I think you and I share some common ground.
Yeah.
And that you and I were both valet parkers. So you both, but I just was a valet parker that worked for the company. Yeah. You actually were a valet parker that ended up owning a valet parking company. Tell me about that. So is this right after college? Was it during college? Was it during high school? Or was it, how long did this go on? Because I loved the valet parking business. My valet parking experience as a high schooler was awesome because I always had cash in my pocket.
Yeah.
So tell me about your valet parking experience. How did you get in that business?
Yeah, I mean,
was that your primary business? And how did you? Tell me about it.
Yeah, I mean, I accidentally started it, I think, as a sophomore in high school. I was old for my age, and I had 2 friends that I grabbed to park cars at one of my parents' parties. They had a really difficult parking at their home. We had to park cars through a church parking lot in the back, cut across the field to get to the cars. And we were shocked at the tips that we got.
Wow. So they were eye-opening when you get a $5 bill.
Let me tell you, it was, I don't know if we had $5 tips back then, but so the 3 of us started the valet parking business.
So you're doing this in high school?
I started in high school.
Yeah, but this is 19 years old, and you're doing 50 people as employees?
Yeah, probably
Okay,
my
yeah.
senior year of high school, and I left for college a year after high school, and it was a disaster, and I ended up quitting college 3 times, but who was counting? And when I came back, I picked up the valet parking again and built it a little bit stronger. And so it got me through college, and it got me through my first couple of years of real estate.
So you learn a lot when you're around the affluence and car parking, right? You see people who have affluence.
Dealing with 50 car parkers, and they were all, college kids and high school kids. That was the toughest
But there's a lot of responsibility that goes in that. So that's really that's interesting that you picked that up at such a young age. So here you are. Then you start to get in the real estate business. Your inspiration for that, obviously, you have a dad who was in the music business. Your mom wasn't in the real estate business. Your dad did own some of the real estate with Brook Mays. Is that right?
A few pieces, yeah.
Okay. So, but nothing really in terms of professional real estate. Now you have an uncle who's in New York, who is Spiegel.
Jerry Spiegel.
Jerry Spiegel. And so he's in the real estate business. But this is before emails and voicemail. And so, was he an influence of you, or how did you end up getting in the real estate business?
Yeah, a tremendous influence. Actually, my older brother was equal the influence. My older brother, Cliff, basically growing up, he was the perfect guy, and he was who I admired and wanted to be most like.
Very athletic, very
the whole thing.
Good looking,
the good looking dude. Actually, I pick up the phone and girls are calling him.
Right.
Is Cliff there?
So he was an inspiration to you.
He was, but my uncle, who had a phenomenal career in real estate in Long Island, and pretty much came from ground up, similar as what we've talked about. He and my dad were best friends, and of course, his wife and my mom were sisters, and the 4 of them were inseparable. So we did family vacations every year, and as my brother got older, he and my uncle, who I always hung out with in the jacuzzi or doing whatever, would always start talking real estate, talking about triple net and, rents and per square foot this, and I always very much felt left out. And I think part of that was an influence between them, and I guess I'll try real estate. And that's how I...
So this is in your early 20s to mid 20s when you're starting this out. Okay. So where's the first step for you to get into the real estate business? How did you end up getting into the real estate business? Besides that, did you get hired by somebody? Grubb and Ellis? Was there? This is a make your own way business in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it is. And it was very difficult. I remember 10, 11, 12 interviews, and I think at the end of the day, I got one job offer.
And so what year was this about? Like early 80s?
Was this 87, 1987.
Okay, well, there was nothing going on real estate-wise.
That's right. It was the best time to learn.
Yeah, so it was really...
It was a disaster what was going on through Houston. I mean, it was, Houston was dead, and it was... it was a real estate disaster.
Economic disaster at that time. So you were getting in really at a very difficult time for anybody, really.
No, getting in at the best time.
But perceived to a lot of people as the worst time.
Yes.
So you got in and...
But by the way, it was the best time to get in because I had no clue what I was doing. And you're talking a 2 to 3 year learning curve. And to learn in a bad market when you couldn't have made any money, and a good market because you didn't know anything, and you learn all the right things in a hard, difficult market, when the market turned, it was a gift that I learned what I did the hard way to be able to use it in the good market.
And there weren't many people standing left in the real estate world at that time too. So
right.
So when it turned, you were standing and you just come out. You're a new.
I didn't know any better.
That's amazing. So tell me. So when did you buy your first property?
The first property was an extreme accident. It was a 1,300 square foot fast food building in Pasadena.
Which is on the east side of Houston.
Most people don't even know where it is. I represented a small sandwich shop called Blimpie Sandwiches along the lines of a Subway. They were huge. They had 70, 80 locations in Houston.
It was the Subway of that era.
Well, they were a direct competitor with Subway. I mean, it was Subway or Blimpie. It was like Blockbuster and Hollywood Video.
So we know who won that. Eventually, Subway became the dominant player. But so so you bought this property over on the east side of Houston, Pasadena. How did that go? Because I mean, obviously you're making a decision now to change from someone who's just a real estate professional to someone who's actually going to be an investor.
You know, it really wasn't a decision.
Did you even think about it?
No, I mean, it was a joke, because this small building that I put a Blimpies in got foreclosed on. The little guy who owned it, and the young bank lending officer started calling me to have the Blimpie franchisee buy it, because they terminated the Blimpie lease, as a bank can do. And I said, you know, franchisees, they don't have two nickels to rub together. You know, there's no way he's going to buy it. Why don't you buy it? Well, they may not have two nickels. I don't have two pennies to rub together. I think I had $5,000 in my savings account. And he was very persistent over a 4-6 month period. And he kept lowering his own price when I got on the phone in one day to get rid of him.
Yeah, the bank just wants this thing off its
He
books.
just wanted it off the books, and he kept calling me. And I was like, you know, he doesn't understand. I have nothing. And so just to get rid of him, I said to him, look, I'm looking at my checking account. I have $71,328.36. That's all I could pay you. That's what I have in my account. Knowing he'd just, you know. And of course, he was furious. He was like, this is a $175,000 property. Blah. I said, thank God he's not going to call me again. Called me the next day. He said, look, you got 30 days. We'll sell it to you for $71,000. I'm like, oh my God, I got $5,000. What am I going to do?
And you're going to buy this place in Pasadena.
And I've never.
Were you scared?
You know,
Do you remember?
Well, I don't think it was a fear factor, because it happened so fast that I didn't have time. It's almost like, are you scared when you're in some kind of knee-jerk reaction type thing? You're just reacting. And of course, I still didn't believe anything was going to happen. Where am I going to get $65,000?
So you're in your late 20s at this point. You're probably 28, 29, somewhere in there.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Not married yet, no kids, nothing.
No, and no money.
Okay.
And my Uncle Jerry, who was very much a father figure, after my dad passed, and even before, he was very much a part of my life. I very reluctantly asked him for a $65,000 loan, and he wanted to know how I was going to pay it back, and interest, and so on and so forth. And very quickly, in a few days, made a $65,000 loan. And that's how I purchased it in 30 days. And I happened to be, in my early brokerage days, I represented small tenants like Blimpie, and I happened to be representing Check Exchange, check-x-change. And he pre-leased it right when I closed, as is. So not only did I, buy it, but
So you had a tenant, you had cash flow day one, it was good to go. So it was a winner.
It was a winner.
And so that was your first, so you said, I like this. This is maybe
Not
the
bad.
next. It's really about taking a baby step at some point, right? A lot of people don't take that first step. And so if you look back at it, it may seem insignificant or just, but it was something that you just, in your gut, you felt like you had to do. Even though someone was imposed, the bank was calling you on it, you threw a kind of a last ditch number out there. So that's really the first step. What do you ever look back at that and go, well, that was really a beautiful moment? That was really what started it all?
Yeah, I think one of my greatest faults is I don't look back and appreciate, kind of in the rearview mirror, some of the things that I've done or certain steps. And
So
I've been doing it ever since.
You say you don't go back and remember, but you do remember, because if you go to your properties, there's some initials that are on every building. There's some initials that are on every building, right?
Yep.
Which are J?
UJ.
UJ. So your uncle's initials are on every building.
Not every, but he made it to most of them.
What you want to do? What do you want to do in the future?
I reached or surpassed my professional goal, and was trying to decide what to do, after reaching that level of accomplishment and your goals, only to be hit by Harvey. And Harvey was a horrible tragedy to our
So many
business
people.
and our company. Well, to so many people,
And especially you.
especially to me.
You got you got hit in your home?
Yeah, and by the way, fortunately, I'm in a position that I could fight it and attack it. So many people in Houston weren't. So even though I took it on the chin multiple directions, and more than most that I know. We were blessed that we had resources, energy, and things to get through it. But
So it made you reassess your situation, just and that is that.
you know what? It didn't quite have me reassess. It was all hands on deck.
Right.
As I mentioned to you, I usually don't look in the rearview mirror, stop and give gratitude for accomplishments and where we've come from. My wife and I have done a fantastic job in slugging through it, and I'm really pleased at where we've come to and limiting our losses. Still have plenty, but we're going to be fine.
So
yeah.
I'll tell you personally, I want to just share with you, I've admired you from afar. I've seen what you've done and hopefully been able to do my best and help you guys whenever I could through your situation. You are definitely someone that I think a lot of people look to as an inspiration for what you've been able to accomplish just through the last year. It wasn't easy and there are a lot of people who got affected by it in Houston. So share with me one other thing about the real estate business. You love it deep down inside. When did you discover that you love this business? You love the cold calling. You love the game of it all, right? The process of it all. When did you realize, this is such a part of me that I love it. This is Brad Sondock.
I mean, I'm pretty much almost when I first got in it. First and foremost, sales. And, I don't care what facet of real estate you're in, what you're doing in real estate.
You're selling.
It's sales. And the art of selling, and really, you don't even call it sales. It should be called closing.
Right.
But to be able to do it's a tangible, meaning it's something you can touch, feel, and see,
right,
and deal with. But to have an end result of seeing a business that opens because you helped select the real estate,
that's very cool.
Or you developed a center out of weeds, and you've affected a neighborhood.
That's extremely cool.
It's pretty spectacular, and it's a total art. I mean, to take a white canvas and be able to take a paintbrush and create a beautiful piece of art on that canvas is no different from taking a piece of land and building a shopping center.
Well, I want to thank you for being on today. You're very generous. I've had experiences with you where you've just given me hours of your time on the phone, and I really appreciate the generosity of you giving your time to be with us today, Brad. You're an amazing person.
I appreciate it. This has been a lot of fun, and there's no better friend than you.
Thank you so much, Brad.